Okay, welcome to the Community Center Building Committee meeting of December 9th, 2024. I am Dick Malcolm, the chair of the committee. Until further, this meeting is being recorded. Until further notice, following the guidance issued by the state in 2020 regarding the open meeting law, this public meeting will be held remotely, and individuals wishing to participate may do so by utilizing Zoom video conference technology. To join the meeting by video conferencing using a computer, tablet, or phone, please visit the website for login information. So I will do a roll call of committee members present. David Billings.
Present.
Barry Goldman.
Present.
And Ruth Townsend.
Yeah.
Is present. So we are missing Luciana. I did not hear from her. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our last meeting on November 11th, 2024. Has everybody assumes had a chance to look at them, hopefully? Is there a motion to approve the minutes of November 11th, 2024?
I haven't had a chance to look at them, I'm afraid. I didn't see them come through. I was trying to find them this evening.
Okay.
But I must have missed them.
Al, can you direct Ruth to where to find them?
Yeah, they should be within, and we can push it to the, approve them on the next month if we need to. I know I didn't give you guys a lot of time to review, but they should be within the today's meetings folder, within the meetings for approval subfolder. So here I can share my screen. There we go. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Yep. So usually I send out the link to the specific meeting. So today's is dated 24/12/9, and then there's a number of folders here, minutes for approval. That's where the minutes should be.
Okay, yeah, I can try and quickly look through them now if you want to move on to the next point. Sorry about that.
Yeah, why don't we circle back to this one then? Okay, so with that then I'll turn it over to Collier's project leaders, or OPM for the project, and that's Alan Igley.
Thank you, Dick, and good evening, everyone. Let me, I don't know why I stopped sharing. Let me share again and get the presentation on the screen. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Excellent. And you know what? I'm actually going to turn it over to Igley, our construction rep, to walk us through the construction progress.
Good evening, everybody. So we're just walking through a little bit of the construction progress that's happened in November and a little bit through December. So on the site, we still have a little bit of rough grading ongoing. The septic system install is still ongoing. We've got curbs installed on site. The generator has been completely installed and wires have been terminated. And we've got placement of concrete walkways and sideways ongoing throughout the site, which we'll see in some of the pictures a little bit later on in the slides. Moving to the pavilion building, so taping of the drywall has been completed. It's been sanded, and there's some painting that's ongoing in that for the various MEP systems that have been installed, and we're going to be starting painting on the walls as well in there. In the kitchen, the resinous flooring install has been completed, and we've got some kitchen equipment that's been installed. Still waiting on the rest of it, and we've got the install of the storefront and the glazing ongoing as well in the pavilion building, as well as the connector. So moving to the gym and the connector. So painting of the walls and window trim is ongoing on the first and second floor of the connector. The elevator cab has been installed and the opening has been completely infilled. The storefront is being installed as well. We've got some pieces that have been installed along with the glazing of the storefront, but still waiting on some of the rest of the pieces. Al, if you don't mind, just or is that and the lighting controls install is ongoing as well in the connector. Sorry, I messed up the template there. So moving to the 1910 building, the taping the wall of the walls has been completed, and we've got painting going on throughout the 1910. Got ceilings have been sprayed, walls have gotten the first coat of primer and first coat of paint. Resinous floors have been installed in all the bathrooms, and we've got ceramic tile that's been installed in the bathrooms. Scheduled to have been completed on Friday. We'll be checking on that tomorrow to see if it's actually been grouted and completed, but expecting that to be completely done in the next couple of days. And ceiling grid install is ongoing as well. The lighting controls are basically being installed throughout the project. I put it in the gym and the connector, but they're essentially, the electricians are working throughout the entire site with that as well. So for December progress and some upcoming activities, so we're expecting the retaining wall installation to begin in the month of December. Expecting the septic system to be completed hopefully in the month of December, weather permitting. And just continuing with interior finishes, and we started seeing some flooring being put down, a little bit of ceramic tile, so expecting that to kind of continue throughout the month of December into January, and start to see a more complete space. Permanent power is expected to be complete at the end of this week, and the AV vendor is mobilizing on site, actually mobilized on site today. So we'll just go through some of the pictures for the construction progress. As you can see on the left, the pavilion exterior, they're working on the soffit framing as of last week, which they should be complete as of today. We'll be checking that on site tomorrow. Some progress on the right side of the gym. I've got curbing and bollards that have been installed on site. We're going to be completing some concrete walkways at the end of this week, hopefully Thursday, weather permitting. Then move into just some progress of the bathroom. So ceramic tile has been installed, resinous flooring has been installed, and it's covered up with ram board at the moment for protection. And then on the right side, the kitchen and the pavilion, got the epoxy floor installed along with some of the kitchen equipment. Taping is complete, and then they're working on the above ceiling MEP controls at this time as well. Moving to the pavilion, so some painting that's been done up there, the ductwork and the fire protection system. Taping has been complete, and then they're going to be starting painting of the walls within the next coming days of the space as well. And on the right side, sort of the same, finishing up install of the storefront in the connector, and then finishing up install of the drywall and taping, and starting to paint in the connector as well. Got electricians working on lighting controls in here, in a bit of the back half of that picture in the right side. And then moving to the next one. So it's second floor of the connector, a lot more painting going on, starting to see a bit more of a complete space up there. Everything's been cleaned up above ceiling. Once light fixtures are in, it's going to look like a complete different space. And basically it's just been cleaned out, and got first coat of paint on the walls and all the openings, and window trim as well. And then on the right side of the gym, the plumbers finished up insulation of the roof drains, and pretty much not a ton of progress that's happened here. As of last month, this is pretty much going to be the last space to be completed with the way that they're sequencing it. But that's pretty much the MEP systems are complete in this space as well as the walls have been painted. So the 1910 first floor, all the piping has been insulated and complete, and the walls have started to get first coat of paint on them. The ceiling grid is 100% installed in the space, and electricians are working on lighting controls in here as well. Just another shot of the hallway in the second floor of the 1910. As you can see, some of the bathrooms, can't really see that well in that picture, but Yeah, you can see the residence floors have been completed in the second floor bathrooms as well. First coat of paint on the walls and ceiling grid has been installed in all the areas in the second floor. Moving to outside of the 1910, so we got the handicap access ramp that was poured last week. So starting to see a little bit more of the exterior finishes here. And then on the right side, just a shot of the elevator install progress. So the cab has been installed, the doors have been installed, and it's been taped and mudded in. It's got a first coat of primer on it. And just a shot of the septic system progress on the left side, and then the curbing, a bird's eye view of the curbing that's been installed on the right side on the site. I'll turn it over to Al for the construction schedule if there's no questions on any of the progress.
Questions, comments on photos, construction progress?
No, thanks, Higley.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the schedule, we received an updated schedule from the contractor last week on the 2nd. And the good news is that they're tracking the same date of substantial completion of February 11th. So this is the first time in many, many months where the date of substantial completion hasn't moved forward with that schedule update. So that tells us that the contractor has a lot more confidence in being able to achieve completion of the project based on what's shown here in the schedule. Similarly, the date of final completion that the contractor is tracking also has not changed. In terms of the delay, we still have not received the corrective plan or the delay claim. I did touch base with Nina because with this pay up from the contractor, we're officially past the current contractual date of substantial completion. The contractor is shown here October 3rd. And so in order to reconcile liquidated damages and amounts that we're withholding, so in summary, we're currently withholding $218,000 with the November pay up from the contractor. We are withholding $218,255.42, of which $108,000 it's for actual damages that the town has incurred after the October 3rd date of contractual date of substantial completion, as well as $109,500 that we're withholding for failure to provide the correct plan, and that is calculated at a rate of $1,500 per calendar day based on the contract for a total of 73 days, I think it was, after for the months of December, January, and through February 11 that they're showing here in their schedule. Any questions on the schedule?
How confident are we on their substantial completion date?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again, David?
How confident are you on their substantial completion date?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident, David. I think we we all are. I think even on their last schedule update, they really only moved it up about a week and a half or so. And so I do feel like the February 11th is an achievable substantial completion for the project.
Well, are they going to be able to get the exterior items finished in time for the weather to set in? Prior to the weather changing?
Yeah, and by exterior, do you mean like the site work or like the building exterior envelope?
I would say site work was one of the things that we talked about in prior meetings.
Yeah, so the site work, some of you're 100% correct. Some of the site work is going to happen in the springtime. So, for example, we still have to put the wearing course of the asphalt, the top coat of the asphalt. So that's going to happen in the springtime, as well as some landscaping. However, the plan is still to move forward. We have a cold concrete placement submittal. We discussed that very briefly in the last meeting. David, I know you asked about that. In order for the contractor to place, the hardscaping during the winter months.
So all the walks are all getting installed. That part of the hardscape is going to be completed before or by the time February 11th rolls around. But what won't be complete on the outside will be as Al mentioned, the last coat on the pavement. Will there be, will they stripe the binder so that the building can be used before that gets done?
That's a good question. I sort of remember us talking about that briefly. It could have been in one of our construction meetings. I do remember them saying that they were going to stripe it and then should stripe it again once they do the top. But let me confirm that with the construction team tomorrow.
Okay. And then essentially, if I followed, as I looked at the schedule out today, it looked like they're not gonna finish the landscaping until mid-May. Do I have that right? So if I've read the schedule correctly, and to answer maybe a more complete answer for you, Barry, is the building on the outside with all the landscaping completed won't be until it's projected to be now mid-May.
So I would wonder how we have a final completion in March. So.
Yeah, that's
I
not
think
accurate.
we need to adjust that because final completion is everything. That's warranties, that's all work, punch list, everything.
Yeah, that's a really good point, David. The 324 is not it's not final completion because they're still gonna, the schedule shows that they still have some work after that. So you're 100% correct.
Okay, on substantial completion, that's gonna be defined by certificate of occupancy.
Yes, the certificate of occupancy is a requirement for substantial completion.
Okay,
So when will the town be able to use the building?
Yeah, it should be. I mean, right after this date, it's when once we have the certificate of occupancy and certificate of substantial completion, technically the owner can start to move into the building.
Now,
Yeah,
you can get an occupancy permit without completing all the painting and floors and some things like that. So are we confident that, by mid-February, it's kind of, we're open for business? Open for the town?
I would be hesitant to put it that soon. They're gonna have furniture, plus they're probably not gonna be done with punch list.
Right.
What's the date that you're starting punch? On their schedule?
January 20th, it's when the contractor's gonna be starting their punch list.
Okay,
And
and what's the date at the start of the commissioning?
I have to look at I mean, we're
Okay. I mean, obviously nothing started now because you don't have permanent power.
correct.
And
We're
you're getting
working
that
on that.
this week. So you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
all the switch gear, you have got everything, and was it National Grid or EverSource is pulling the final cables and transformers?
Yep. So right now, M. O'Connor is literally just trying to get a hold of EverSource. They actually called me this morning to try to get another contact because they're just having a hard time. But they're ready for permanent power at this point. It's in EverSource court at this point.
Well, have they confirmed it? And yes, EverSource is hard to get a hold of, but do they have a confirmed work order?
That I'm not sure. Let me ask tomorrow. It's a good,
Please.
what would be the date that we have to stop accruing the penalty? Is it substantial completion or is it final completion?
Really good question, Barry. It's both, actually. There are liquidated damages for both.
Right.
Different amounts?
Same amount, 1,500 per calendar day.
Okay, so it continues until final completion.
Correct. So the way that the contract is structured is that the contractor has 1 month, I believe it's 30 days, to achieve final completion from substantial completion. If they take more than 30 days, then that counts as liquidated damages.
Okay,
Well, that's contractual substantial completion, which is now October 3rd. So technically, you get liquidated damages for both substantial and final completion between October 3rd and February 11th, if they meet that date. Or if we change the date per contract by change order.
And then he has another 30 days to finish before the,
Yes,
damages
by
start.
contract, we define final completion as 30 days after contractual substantial completion.
Okay,
So then after that, then the liquidated damages kick back in. Is that how I understand? Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, they kind of keep going, yeah.
But they take a break between that month, for that month of between substantial completion and final completion.
Well, since they're already late on substantial, then it goes from $3,000 a day to back down to 1,500.
So it just keeps the ticker's running, just keeps going.
The ticker's running.
Okay.
Dick, if I could just quickly interject that before your committee goes public with any kind of completion date, that your confidence level be in the 99th percentile or higher. I think that it would be a bloody nose if we tell people it's X date, and then even if it's one day later, it's like, let's really get them to commit and see where we are. And if we say we're hoping for substantial completion in mid-February, and with the exception of the outside work that can't be done in the winter, late March, something like that, so that people don't fixate on a date.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, well taken.
yeah. Well, I think the definition of substantial completion is based upon the word current that's in front of it. So I think you're right, Dave. Because that may change.
Until our confidence level is really high, why put a date on it to the public?
Right.
Yeah, it's really hard to pick like an exact date for substantial completion, just because there's just so many so many things that are in the works at the same time. So it's really hard to pick an exact date.
May I ask what the mechanism is when the contractor says, okay, we're substantially complete? Well, the building inspectors have to agree. Your committee has to agree. What are the mechanisms to push back if we are getting rushed and it's not truly substantially complete?
That's a really good question. So the architect is responsible for issuing the certificate of substantial completion, and generally the way that the contract works, and sometimes it depends, but I believe on this one, the way that it's worded is that once the architect believes that that final completion is about 30 days away. So in other words, the contractor can say, yes, I'm substantially complete, but they have so much work that they're clearly not 30, they clearly do not have about 30 days worth of work. So in some other contracts they do, once the architect determines that, the scope of the work remaining, it's less than a certain amount. I believe on this one, it is based on those 30 days.
So Katie, maybe you can give us a little menu of what
Yeah,
what has to be done
absolutely.
for substantial completion.
So there's a couple of things that I want to highlight, and Al, you've kind of gone through the schedule. So the contractor has included several rounds of punch lists. Al and I have talked, and my speech is always to say, once the contractor does their first round of punch list, and we can receive that, that's what we will start our list, because it's always part of a contract. The contractor does their first round of their own punch list. So that's, in addition to previous deficiency logs and any other things that are happening, that's the impetus for that. So everyone from the design team will be making multiple site visits to do a punch list. It can happen in a lot of different fashions. We'll probably be using Procore. The contractor's using that as a software. So we'll go through and mark things up in the building. Each of the different disciplines will obviously be representing their own scope. Primarily for architecture, the first and the most important part when we walk through is looking at life safety. And I say it that way because there are some times where a project may be close to getting complete, but there's some outliers and things that are known to not be complete. And so it's likely going to result in a temporary certificate of occupancy. This can happen for a number of different reasons, but it's a coordination back and forth with the building department and others to say, you know, we believe the building is, you know, safe. It can be occupied by the public, but there are a couple things that need to be complete that are known. And that's, you know, that's something that the building department has to say, yes, we acknowledge these things and we know that you can get them done in 30, 60, or 90 days. So that, you know, so oftentimes talk about a TCO or a C of O, you know, they can effectively get us to the same place, which is substantial, you know, completion so that the building can be occupied. So in addition to going through and going through the building to confirm that work is complete, there will be a punch list. And so when we've done that process, and there will be some punch list work, meaning, you know, scratches in the walls that needs to be retaped, or different testing and commissioning that needs to be complete. So for other disciplines, you know, generally the mechanical engineer will walk through, and they'll be looking at all of the equipment, all of the devices, all of, you know, the systems to make sure things are working. But in order for the mechanical engineer to release their affidavit, so the construction control document, generally they want to do their punch list, have their list of observations, but they also need some information from the contractor. So things like a balancing report that confirms that there's fresh air going to all the spaces. It may not necessarily be 100% complete. Every room might not be perfectly balanced, but as a bare minimum, we want to make sure that all the spaces are getting fresh air. And so for each of the different, you know, engineers and consultants coming on site, they're going to have their own thing to be looking at to say, okay, we want the work to be complete. We're going to find the things that are, you know, not yet done, but they're usually a short list of things that are, you know, the bare minimum of things that are necessary in order to release the affidavit. So while the engineers and everyone are doing the punch list, there will also be some testing that happens. The fire alarm monitoring company will be coming on site to, you know, coordinate with the fire department. That's usually a big test for the electrical engineer to make sure that all the systems are performing as expected. And the biggest part about that is knowing that everyone can witness the building being tested in real time. And that's also when the third-party monitoring company is taking over, you know, responsibility for you know, managing the fire alarm system. There are things like that that are, it's not really an issue of the contractor saying we're done and someone else saying, no, you're not, because the test you have to pass the test. So there are a number of things that are clearly just black and white. But all of those things together, you know, compile into, you know, a whole packet of documentation. That's what gets submitted, and that's the final determination of substantial completion. So there may be pressure to get things done, and there may be urgency to, you know, to complete, but there are a number of boxes that can only be checked by very specific metrics. So it's not an issue of, you know, hey, we want this to be done. It's we have to get the testing, you know, clearly showing, you know, things like plumbing will want to make sure the water's been chlorinated. You know, there are a number of these things that are very clear. So, you know, we will have this conversation with the contractor a number of times to say, you know, this is what's required in order to, you know, get to that point. And the substantial completion date really is the day that the, you know, the building department has walked through, the fire department has walked through. We have all of those things, and typically, you know, the inspections aren't going to happen until after the engineers have gone through and released the affidavit. So it's a series of things that are very linear. There's multiple things going at the same time, but it's you know, kind of one step forward and then a pause till we get to that point. So, you know, the substantial completion date is actually one that you usually talk about sort of in hindsight, because you know, the day that the certificate is, you know, handed over, there's still work happening. But that date does become the line in the sand for things like warranties, and, you know, those kinds of things that happen as part of the project closeout, you know, O&M materials and different things like that. So, Dick, that was probably longer than what you were expecting, but hopefully that gives you a sense of there's a series of things that we'll be doing, you know, to get to that point. And Al, I think you said that maybe towards the third week of January, that was the expected, you know, timeline to start the punch list process. You know, that's a month and a half from now. By that point, I think, there will be multiple more reviews and inspections going on. So in a month, I think we'll have a little bit more information, but really, once the contractor starts their punch list process, then I think we can really forecast the final steps in a much more precise manner, because we'll be able to see the information they're already tracking. That's what's complete and what's not complete.
So just, so for substantial completion, just to give it a quick one sentence summary, would be for substantial completion, the building has to be functioning the way it's intended to be and approved by all your consultants in order for the architect, the contractor to be granted the certificate of substantial completion.
Yes, correct. So at the beginning of the project, in addition to all the documents that were submitted to the building department for the permit, there was also a series of affidavits from all the consultants. So anyone that gave, that issued one on the front will have one at the final part of the project. So I'll need all of those things signed off in order to submit that. That's when substantial completion can happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Any other questions on schedule?
I actually have a real quick one, if I may. This happened to us back at Chickering School. Do you know when the underground tanks for fire suppression are going to be filled?
That's, what, I don't have a date. That's a really good question. Let me make a note of it, and I'll ask tomorrow.
And then what you're going to need to do is have them tested about 10 days later. The one at Chickering School was filled up. We were all ready to go. And the fire inspector came over the day before school started and said, your tanks are empty. There's a leak. So don't want that to happen again. Lightning's already struck once.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for raising that. Dave will follow up on that.
I would think they could do an air pressure test. I don't think you want to fill it and find out you got a problem.
Way above my pay grade, David. All I know is we had to have one of those big tanker trucks of water brought in and hooked up to the hydrant until we fixed the underground tanks.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, we'll follow up on that. Anything else on schedule? All right, moving to the budget, a few changes during the month of November. Seen here highlighted in yellow. In column B, we had a couple of contingency transfers. I'm gonna show you guys what those are for. A couple of them were for the ad services that were recommended for approved last month. So you can see that we moved some money over to the architect's budget as well as the OPM's budget. We have, I think, like 8 invoices. I'll go over what those are. Those are highlighted here in column D1. Our what we're tracking as far as exposures, potential exposures on the project, we're tracking a total of 212,000, about 100,000 in construction potential change orders that we'll see in a minute, and about the other half, around 100,000 in owners in soft cost potential change orders. And worst case scenario, should all of those potential exposures known, if all of those were approved, we are looking at a 51% remaining contingency, or about 1.2 million. Any questions on the overall budget? Okay, going into more detail, this is just a list of all the change orders that have been approved to date. The ones highlighted in yellow are the ones that were recommended for approval. Last month, I moved those into the approved columns, which is why they're shown here. And then we had a couple of other smaller potential change orders that we needed to expedite directly through Michael Blanchard. These are under the $20,000 expedited process. We had a CCD for time and material work for some of the soffit that's ongoing right now. And a couple other items here that we needed to get done in order to avoid schedule or cost impact. We can certainly get into more details if we need to. Any questions on the PCOs here? Okay, so again, these are all approved. Now we're going to look at the ones that are pending right now, and this is for hard costs or aka construction costs. Anything highlighted in yellow are changes from the last month, and you can see one highlighted in blue is the only one that we want to that we're ready to present to you all today for approval recommendation. This is PCO number 37. This was done on time and material. Igli, I know you were helping me with the PCOs.
Yep.
If you want to add to this.
Yeah, so this is basically just time and material that we approved. They had to field modify some brick around the jamb of the door in the gym on the exterior. Basically, it was a fitment issue. They had to field modify the G brick around the door. We authorized them on TNM. It was a couple days worth of work, 6 hours for 2 days. I'm sorry, 12 hours, 6 hours a day for a mason to field modify the brick.
Thanks, Igli. Yeah, so this is this is the only one that we would like to vote on. All the other ones we're still very much working through.
Okay. Okay. All right, so I'd like to make a motion to field modify and cut G brick in the amount of $2,190.41. This is for would be for a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen for approval. So are you in, so is there a I guess, is there a can this motion be moved, and then we'll get a second?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, are you in favor of the motion? David Billings,
Yes.
Barry Goldman,
yes,
Ruth,
Yes.
and I am yes as well.
Excellent. Any questions on the pending change orders? Okay.
Are we gonna get an explanation of, I guess, PCO 21? Is that coming?
Yeah, that one, the price went up a little bit. This has been going, we have been going back and forth on this one for many months now.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still working through this one. We just want to make sure that we believe that this is a legitimate a change order that the owner should pay for before that. So there's a few things that we needed to confirm there.
Okay, thank you.
And then so moving on to the soft cost change order. So we have the approved change orders up here first, and as you can see, we have 4 items highlighted in yellow. These are the ones that were recommended for approval at the last building committee meeting. I highlighted them because I moved them from the pending section to the approved section. So we have FMA's at services for 3 months, Collier's at services not to exceed time and material for 5 months. And when we have the fence PCOs here. And this is the reason why you saw, if you remember here in the budget report, some of the contingency changes are because transfers are because of these at services and proposals here. So looking at the pending ones, I have a placeholder here for FMA's at services to get us through the end of the project. I just basically did 2 months for now while we figure that out. And then I have another one. This is for miscellaneous at services. This is for services that FMA provided throughout the project that was not part of their contract scope. So like helping, studying different areas associated with the different options associated with the generator, for example. There were some unforeseen conditions in the beginning of the project with some footings that needed to review and like underpinning work. So just put a placeholder there for, I just put 50,000 for now. I'm not sure what the number is going to be, but stay tuned on that one.
Well, that should have been brought up before the services. Yeah, you can't sort of go after the fact. I mean, we don't need to discuss it now, but we're gonna have some issues with this issue. With sort of having additional services without getting pre-approval.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and I know we talked about some of these before, but we didn't have like a more formal conversation. But you know, a lot of these, if not all of these, we had initial discussions about, hey, you know, this is, you know, not technically part of our contract scope. So we'll you know, we'll review that once we have the detail on that.
So Al, the on FM, so this takes if you can go back to that slide, please. So FMA ad services in yellow, that's up through the end of the year. Is that correct? The 76K?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And then we've got 2 months in our budget now so that's January, February. Okay, but we know it's going to go beyond February. So have we accounted for any more additional months beyond February from FMA?
Yeah, good point. So, I mean, I just included 2 months for now, just because I'm not really sure about the level of effort, how that's going to be, you know, how that's going to be calculated. But we can certainly bump that up if we, you know, if it helps kind of, you know, make it feel more confident.
So there's not so for any work from FMA after the end of February, we don't have a placeholder in our budget.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, I think we need a realistic idea of what design and management costs are going to be to bring us through the end. I'm not sure I just want to agree to a monthly rate that's based on a certain scope, but we've got to understand what our risk is.
Right.
Agreed, 100%, David. And I know, you know, we just got an updated schedule, and I know FMA is working hard on getting, you know, getting that to us. So yeah, as soon as we have that, I'll certainly update this and make sure that we, you know, we have a better, more accurate figure.
Now to follow with FMA Colliers, you've got in the budget the 150K as a placeholder. That's through the end of January. Obviously, you are going to be still involved in this project after January. Is there a placeholder in the budget for Colliers work beyond January?
Good point. Yeah, we should probably include something in there. And I'm trying to remember how we set up that ad services. I know we had at least in one of the versions we had something about being prorated. So you're 100% correct. I think we should probably include a line item here for Colliers, so I can certainly do that.
Well, it seems to me that both Colliers and FM, the budget, you're going to be working beyond what the budget has budgeted for.
Yep, I can
Right, and I
add a
thought
line
it was,
item.
yeah, I thought it was supposed to be on a time and materials basis. So, and I'm not,
Yeah, for Colliers, it's a time and materials basis not to exceed 150,000, but that's only for effort through the end of January.
well, it's until the money runs out.
I'd have to reread it.
Yeah, it's time and materials until, technically, until you're out of that money.
Maybe we should base it upon completion.
Well, it should be, because that's, we're gonna need both design and management services through the project closeout.
I mean, my point, Al, is that if from what I'm hearing, in this budget you're presenting to us tonight, there's nothing, there's no more, you have an account, there's no accounting for any services for Colliers beyond January or for services from FMA, beyond, February.
Yeah, no, 100% correct there. I can certainly add, adjust, add a line item here for Colliers and sort of estimate, based on the schedule that we have and what I believe it might take to finish the project. And similarly with FM as well.
Yep, that would be great if you could.
And as soon as we have more
Okay.
detail, then I'll update it.
And your initial fee for Colliers was through October, correct? Your base contract?
No, I believe it was through the end of August, and then we had 2 months of closeout, which was September and October, if I remember
All right,
correctly.
so your lump sum fee should have brought you through the end of October.
Yes, yes. Now the only thing is that because our closeout fee is the estimated effort for the closeout fee was lower than the typical construction services. What we did is we pushed the closeout fee to the very end of the project, and so we basically inserted the 5 months delay after our construction services ended basically at the end of August. And so basically August, so we have September, October, November, December, and January is part of our app services, and then we have 2 months of closeout after that. So we do have 2 months after January. So we have February and March. We have a fee for that under our base contract. So our base contract, right now we have a fee until essentially the end of March. That's what I'm trying to say.
I'm just looking at your invoice. You got things from September and October, so.
Yep.
It's a little hard to parse at this point. So, all right.
Yeah, I'll go over the invoicing when we get in the next slide, actually. So yeah, nothing here to necessarily take a vote on. But thank you for the feedback. I'll adjust some of these so that we're have a more realistic sense of where we stand. We can forecast contingency forecast. So as I mentioned earlier, should everything that you see here be approved, it's 102,000, which we know we're going to bump that up a little bit, and this 93,000 here for all the pending change orders. Should all of that be approved, we are tracking around 50% remaining contingency, or 1.2 million, 1.236. Any questions? All right.
Now, if I could just reiterate that any costs that you believe are going to be incurred get put onto this pending, wherever it's appropriate to put it. But we're going to be looking at the total and the total amount of contingency left. So it's what Dave and Dick were saying is very important just beyond your committee.
Understood. All right. Invoices, like I said, we have 8 invoices here, starting with M. O'Connor's payment application number 17. And then the reason why I'm highlighting this in yellow, because this is the withholding adjustment under pay app, for essentially to reconcile liquidated damages that the town has, incurred to date, as compared to what we were withholding. So their pay app was for 1,116,866, and we approved 1,049,000 out of that. We have our at service, our invoice And this is for 43,267. So what I wanted to clarify here is that, so during the September and October, we billed based on our closeout because we didn't have the ad services agreed at that point. We didn't have it signed. So we had billed for September and October 21,154, whereas the ad services is a not to exceed of 30,000. So what this 43,000 is essentially the entire month of November plus the delta for the months of September and October. So if I just do a quick math, let me see here. So essentially, so we have so right now November, that's 3 months of Collier's ad services, right? So 3 months, so we did 30,000 times 3, that's 90,000. And so what we ended up on our based on our hourly, what we ended up billing was a 21,154 for the months of September and October, plus 43,267, 85. So we're, I think that's correct. Yeah, I think that's correct. Yeah, so 80, so we're slightly under. I thought it was a little bit more of a delta, so maybe getting something wrong. But anyways, that's to say that we're under the not to exceed of our ad services.
We're gonna have
Al,
to,
oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
You mentioned earlier that we're withholding $218,255 for November from M. O'Connor. And on this sheet, you're only withholding 67.
Yeah, that's because we were already withholding 147,000. So this is just the delta to essentially reconcile the actual damages that the town has incurred versus what we were withholding before the date of substantial completion. So it's essentially like it's like two, we can think of it as almost like 2 buckets of money. And so this reconciles that withholding.
But you don't withhold actual, you withhold liquidated damages.
Yep. So we're essentially withholding for 2 reasons. One of them is liquidated damages, or talking to Nina, it sounds like we should actually call it actual damages. So that's one part of what we're withholding,
Okay.
and this is the first time that we're withholding that because we're now past the contractual date of substantial completion. So that's one. The other reason why we're withholding is it's forecasted based on what the contractor is saying they're going to complete the project. We're forecasting at $1,500 per calendar day, and the reason for that is under a separate contract section that essentially because the contractor hasn't provided that corrective plan. So those are the two reasons, and so this reconciles both of those. Any questions?
Yeah, Al, on the Collier's invoice, yeah, yeah, I get, we had already paid, we had basically the effort to date or through November, from what I'm gathering, is the 85,000, the 85,575. Okay, of which you've already received $42,308, and that was that 21K, which you were paid
Yes.
each for
Yeah.
September and October. So this is the delta, as you said. I did not see an itemization of the hours for the delta. If you could please provide that, that would be, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so I mean, all the
Yeah, it's
hours
very
are
convoluted, trying to figure out what this is.
yeah. So if we open up the
So yeah, you have all
invoice.
the hours. They're from the end of September through, looks like the end of November.
Well, for instance, Igley's, we don't have an itemization of
It's-
Igley's hours for the month of September. And we don't have an itemization out of your hours for the month of September or October.
Yeah, it should be everything.
We should have everything in there.
Yeah, I do see hours from September and October here. So this is the date and these are the hours.
So
So
why do we have just 2 days in September? Should,
uh,
you know, we need a full accounting of what's going on.
yeah, something's missing here. I will track this down. Yeah. Yeah, I will check on this. Why isn't that not all the hours are showing here? So I'll follow up with that. Moving that we have FMA's invoice for 27,618 for the month of November. We have a couple invoices here for some vendors. So Retrofit 3,440. They basically have all of their equipment already ready to go. Colonial Fencing, these proposals were approved. That's for that's a deposit of 12,825, 50% deposit. Core and Main, this is scope of work that at one point we were looking at having Nemo Corner do it, and you know that their first estimate was like 80,000 and the second estimate was like 25, you know, then we were able to bring it down to like 25,000. And talking to Carl, it looks like the town was able to do it for like $1,500. We're still you know, we're still missing an invoice for the police detail for that, but my understanding, it was only 1 day worth of work. So that's a big win for the town there. We have bricks, a couple of inspections for compacting, $312. And then our typical monthly invoice for the container rentals for $398. Any questions?
Okay, so, is there a motion? I'd like to put a little caveat to Colliers on this. Is there a motion, to recommend for approval, the invoices as submitted in the amount of $1,137,492.09 with Colliers invoice recommendation for approval subject to receipt and acceptance of itemization of hours for those missing months.
So how do you make any changes? I mean, I guess we can leave it up to, I guess, the board of selectmen meeting to approve.
Yeah, we're only making a recommendation for approval, so I'm
No,
not,
I know, but I mean, hopefully they're looking to us to have vetted these.
Right.
And I'm not sure, I just don't understand the Colliers invoice.
um,
I mean, it'd be helpful if we'd see these things a little, a little bit beforehand, except an hour. So
so if we can omit Colliers for recommendation for approval at this point in time. And recommend for approval the others.
I also got a question on FMAs. Are we paying for transport to the site? Is that a reimbursable cost? Why do we have an Uber bill?
Yeah. Yes, yes, David. Those are all reimbursable expenses. We've had those pretty much every
Really?
month. Yeah.
Why would we have transport to the site? It's not as though, then it's part of the deal. I don't remember seeing this before. I've never had, it's, you know, a main consultant get travel expenses unless it's out of state or, you know, substantial. I would expect it to be part of the fee.
David, I
So
can add
so we
in,
have a budget for, you know, these reimbursables somewhere? 'Cause it's not in the contract.
Yes, we have a budget for that. If we go back here, there's a budget here, where my cursor is for consultant reimbursables. We have 35,000 for a budget.
Yeah, but that's
Right,
usually printing and stuff. That's not travel. Their contract says that they can charge for travel to the site.
yes, that's how the contract is set up.
Uh, I've never seen that.
David, I was just gonna add on, I was also surprised by that when I started on this project, because I've never had that in the past. But I know it's how we have been invoicing consistently. It's not something that I've ever been able to successfully negotiate in a contract before, so I was surprised by
Yeah,
that. But you, Al can probably point you to the past invoices. It has been, monthly, we have been, submitting those as reimbursables.
you know, you have to visit the site, you know, by law. I mean, this is controlled construction. Heck.
Yep.
All right, well. I should have looked at the contract. This, I don't know who would agree to it, but all right. Well, it's a little late in the game for that.
Okay, is there any other, on these invoices, is there any more discussion on the invoices before I attempt to make a motion? Okay, so do we, question, then if do we omit recommending for approval Collier's invoice at this time until we receive further, information backup of their for their hours. So what we could do is we can recommend for approval all these invoices with the exception of Collier's. And then before the Board of Selectmen meet, obviously we'd want to have that worked out.
Well, it sounds like there's enough uncertainty about Collier's to omit it.
Well, just as a suggestion to the chair, if we vote to approve it upon your final approval before submitting it to the Board of Selectmen, then Dick, then, you know, you give them some time to get you the information. And Dick, if you are fine with it, I'm fine with it. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
If it helps you all, we meet on the 19th. So you got 10 days to get this all sorted out.
Okay.
So we don't need to vote a number. We can just vote authorization for you to approve it. If that works with the rest of the committee.
Okay. That seems to work for the rest of the committee, then I'll try to put this into some words. Is there a motion to recommend for approval the invoices listed for the total amount of $1,137,492.09, contingent with Collier's invoice, contingent upon the chair's authorization, approval, excuse me, the chair's approval of their revised invoice prior to the selectmen's meeting on the 19th.
You may want to say review and approval, subject to review and approval.
So subject to,
The chair's review and approval.
by the chair. Okay, from the chair. Thank you, Barry. So do I have to attempt to say that all over again?
No, I'll agree,
That's fine. I'll even second.
Thank you. Okay, so we've had a motion and we've had it seconded also. Make sure we
Sounds
do it
good.
properly. Okay, I will. Are you in favor of the motion, David,
yes.
Barry,
Yes,
Ruth?
Yes.
And I am as well. Thank you.
Okay, that takes us basically to the end of the agenda. Any citizens on the line, citizen comments? Any new business?
Al, I have one quick non sequitur. Just to go back to the fire tank. I just wanted to follow up for Dave and David. We did get air testing from the fire protection subcontractor. They had a third party come in and did air testing of both of the 30,000 gallon tanks. This was back in September when they were installed. So we did do that part already, but I don't have a date on the water. So one step forward.
Thanks, Katie.
I'm just a once bitten, twice shy kind of person, so I figured like might as well say it because literally if Dave Tiberi came up with an ingenious solution to open school on time by having that pool water truck hook up to the fire hydrant.
Any other new business from anyone? All right, so the next meeting is scheduled we're looking at Monday, January 13th, same time. Does that work for everyone?
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Al. Thank you, Igley. And is there a motion to adjourn?
motion.
Motion? No,
Second.
sorry. Second?
Are you in favor of the motion? But David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Ruth,
Yes.
and I am also. Thank you all very much.
All right. Thank
Have a
you.
nice night.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.